The Barrett M82A1 50 caliber sniper rifle lay in pieces across the armory table, its components gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights of Fort Bragg's weapons maintenance facility. Colonel Marcus Hayes watched through the observation window as the small figure methodically worked, her movements precise and fluid. Too precise for someone who was supposed to be just another enlisted maintenance clerk. Each component was handled with an almost reverent care that spoke of intimate familiarity. The barrel extension, the muzzle brake, the massive scope. She assembled them not like someone following a manual, but like a master craftsman reuniting with an old friend. The entire process took her exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Hayes had timed it 3 times now, and it never varied by more than 5 seconds. But here's what bothered the colonel most. Private First Class Sarah Chen wasn't supposed to know how to do that. Her military occupational specialty was 92Y, Unit Supply Specialist. She should have been counting inventory and processing supply requests, not performing advanced weapons maintenance on one of the most sophisticated sniper systems in the U.S. military arsenal. What Colonel Hayes didn't know, what nobody at Fort Bragg knew, was that he was watching a ghost. Someone whose real identity had been buried so deep in classified files that even her current commanding officers had no idea who she really was. The question that would haunt Hayes for the next 72 hours was simple. Who was Private First Class Sarah Chen? And why could she field strip and reassemble a Barrett M82 faster than his best-trained snipers? Drop your city name in the comments below. Let's see where our military family is watching from tonight. To everyone at Fort Bragg, Sarah Chen was invisible, the quiet supply clerk who processed ammunition requests and maintained equipment logs with mechanical precision. At 28, she was older than most of the privates, which already made her an anomaly in a system that typically recruited straight out of high school. Her personnel file showed a late enlistment, a college dropout from Berkeley, who'd apparently found direction through military service. The other soldiers treated her with the casual indifference reserved for support personnel. She wasn't infantry, wasn't special forces, wasn't anyone important. Just another REMEF's, rear echelon mother. Well, you know the rest. They'd joke about the supply girl who never spoke up during formations, never joined them at the NCO club, never seemed to have opinions about anything beyond requisition forms and inventory counts. Staff Sergeant Williams, her direct supervisor, barely acknowledged her existence beyond handing out daily assignments. Chen, process these ammo requests. Chen, update the weapons maintenance logs. Chen, make sure the cleaning supplies are stocked. She would nod silently and execute every task with an efficiency that bordered on robotic. But there were small things, details that only someone with Colonel Hayes' experience might notice. The way she carried herself, weight balanced and ready, like someone who'd spent years moving through hostile territory. How her eyes constantly swept rooms upon entry, cataloging exits and potential threats. The fact that she never sat with her back to a door, never relaxed her posture completely, never let her guard down. Most telling of all was her silence when the infantry soldiers would brag about their marksmanship scores or complain about the difficulty of advanced weapons training. Sarah would simply listen, her expression neutral as they boasted about hitting targets at 800 meters or grumbled about the recoil on heavy weapons systems. She never corrected their form when she saw them improperly handling weapons, never offered suggestions when they struggled with maintenance procedures she could clearly perform in her sleep. She just watched, processed, and remained perfectly, mysteriously silent. What Colonel Hayes couldn't have known, what was buried in classified files requiring Delta-level clearance, was that Private First Class Sarah Chen was actually former Staff Sergeant Sarah Chen, call sign Phoenix, previously of the 75th Ranger Regiment's Long-Range Surveillance Detachment, and before that, a graduate of the U.S. Army Sniper School at Fort Moore. Her record, locked away in a vault at the Pentagon, told a different story entirely. Between 2018 and 2022, she had served 3 tours in Afghanistan as part of a classified counter-terrorism unit operating in the mountains along the Pakistani border. Her specialty was extreme long-range interdiction, eliminating high-value targets at distances that pushed the absolute limits of ballistic science. The 247-meter shot that would eventually define her legacy had occurred during Operation Silent Thunder, a classified mission in the Kunar province. Taliban commander Hakim Nazir had been coordinating attacks against coalition forces from a compound thought to be unreachable by conventional means. The terrain made close approach impossible. Airstrikes were ruled out due to civilian presence, and artillery couldn't achieve the precision required. That's when Phoenix had been given the green light for what everyone assumed was an impossible shot. She had positioned herself on a ridge 2,847 meters from the target, over 7 miles away, accounting for wind speed, temperature, humidity, elevation, and even the rotation of the Earth. The Barrett M82A1 had bucked against her shoulder like a living thing, though a 50 caliber round traveling for nearly 4 seconds before finding its mark. The shot had been so extraordinary that it required verification from 3 separate observation teams and satellite confirmation. It broke the previous record for the longest confirmed sniper kill in military history, a record that officially didn't exist because the mission remained classified. But success in the shadows came with a price. After her unit was compromised during their final operation, resulting in the loss of 2 team members, Sarah had been extracted and placed in witness protection within the military itself. Her identity was scrubbed, her record sealed, and she was reassigned with a new military occupational specialty that would keep her far from the battlefield. The Army's witness security program had given her a new life and buried her old one so completely that even she sometimes wondered if Phoenix had been real or just a dream born of gunpowder and mountain wind. The emergency klaxon shattered the routine calm of Fort Bragg at 0347 hours on a Tuesday morning. Colonel Hayes was pulled from sleep by his secure phone, the red one that never brought good news. "Sir, we have a situation," came the voice of Major Rodriguez from the Base Operations Center. "Armed intruders have breached the perimeter near Building 7823. At least 4 tangos, possibly more, moving toward the ammunition storage facility." Hayes was already pulling on his uniform. Security response? "First team is pinned down. Sniper fire from elevated positions. These aren't amateurs, sir. They know our response protocols and they're ready for us." Building 7823 housed some of the most sensitive ammunition stockpiles on the East Coast, including experimental ordnance that could not fall into hostile hands. The implications of a successful breach were catastrophic. "Sir," Rodriguez continued, "we need a long-range solution. These tangos have positioned themselves beyond the effective range of our standard weapon systems. The angles are all wrong for our designated marksmen, and by the time we get a sniper team in position—" "How long?" Hayes demanded, already running toward the operations center. "Thermal imaging shows they're placing charges, maybe 20 minutes before they breach the main storage area." 20 minutes. Not enough time to deploy a proper sniper team from the Special Operations compound 30 miles away. Not enough time for air support to coordinate with ground teams. The intruders had chosen their timing and position with tactical precision that spoke of inside knowledge. In the operations center, Hayes studied the tactical display showing heat signatures and firing positions. The mathematics were brutal. The intruders were positioned 1,200 to 1,500 meters from any effective counter-sniper position, using natural terrain features that provided perfect cover and concealment. They had successfully neutralized the base's immediate response capability and were methodically working toward their objective. "Sir?" Sergeant Williams had appeared at Hayes's shoulder, still half-dressed but alert. "I might have. Sir, this is going to sound crazy, but I think we might have someone who can make those shots." Hayes turned, his expression skeptical. "Williams, unless you've got a miracle hiding in your supply closet." "Chen, sir. Private First Class Chen. I've seen her with the weapons, sir. The way she handles them, it's not normal. There's something about her that doesn't add up." Through the operations center windows, Hayes could see the ammunition storage facility in the distance, its perimeter lights casting long shadows where death waited in the darkness. Time was running out, and conventional solutions were failing. The decision that would change everything hung in the air like cordite smoke. "Get Chen. Now," Hayes ordered. Sarah arrived at the operations center still in her PT gear, her expression carefully neutral despite being pulled from sleep and thrust into what was clearly a combat situation. Hayes briefed her quickly, watching her face for any reaction. She listened without comment as he explained the tactical situation, the distances involved, the stakes. "Private Chen," Hayes said finally, "I need to know if you can make shots at 12 to 1500 meters under combat conditions." For the first time since her arrival at Fort Bragg, Sarah's mask slipped. Just for a moment, Hayes saw something flicker in her eyes, recognition, calculation, and something else. Something that looked like coming home. "Sir," she said quietly, "I'll need access to a Barrett M82, match-grade ammunition, and a clear line of sight." The way she said it, not asking if those resources were available, not expressing doubt about the mission, just stating requirements like a professional assessing a job, told Hayes everything he needed to know. 15 minutes later, Sarah lay prone on the roof of Building 4471. The Barrett M82A1 settled against her shoulder like an old friend. The night vision scope revealed 4 heat signatures in elevated positions around the ammunition facility. Range: 1,347 meters to the nearest target, 1,521 meters to the furthest. "Phoenix to base," she said into the comm unit, using her old call sign without thinking. "I have visual on all 4 tangos, requesting permission to engage." In the operations center, Hayes felt the hair on his neck stand up. Phoenix. He'd heard that call sign before in briefings he wasn't supposed to remember about operations that officially never happened. "Phoenix, this is base actual," Hayes responded, understanding now what he was dealing with. "You are cleared hot. Repeat, you are cleared hot." The first shot came without warning. The massive crack of the 50 caliber round followed by the suppressed thump of impact at distance. Through his binoculars, Hayes watched the thermal signature of the lead sniper simply disappear. "Target down." Sarah's voice came over the comm, calm and professional. "Engaging target 2. 4 shots. 4 targets eliminated at distances that most soldiers couldn't even see clearly. Each round placed with surgical precision, accounting for wind, elevation, and movement. The entire engagement lasted less than 3 minutes. When it was over, Sarah methodically cleared the weapon and began breaking down the system with the same fluid efficiency Hayes had observed in the armory. No celebration, no acknowledgement of the extraordinary marksmanship she'd just demonstrated, just professional competence completing the mission. "Sir," she said as Hayes approached, offering him a small, worn object from her pocket. It was a military challenge coin, but not just any coin. This was the classified insignia of Joint Special Operations Command, marked with a designation Hayes recognized, the Phoenix Program. Below the Phoenix emblem was engraved, SSG Chen, longest confirmed kill, 2847. Hayes stared at the coin, then at the woman standing before him. "You're her. You're the Phoenix sniper from the classified reports." Sarah's expression remained neutral, but she nodded once. "Was, sir. That person doesn't officially exist anymore. By dawn, the ammunition facility was secure, the intruders were neutralized, and Fort Bragg was returning to normal operations. But Colonel Hayes couldn't let it end there. He spent the next week making encrypted calls and submitting classified queries until he'd pieced together the full story of Staff Sergeant Sarah Chen and her transformation into Private First Class Sarah Chen. The Army's witness security program had done its job too well. They'd buried a national hero so completely that her own service branch had forgotten what they possessed. But Hayes wasn't about to let that continue. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood at attention in the base commander's office as Hayes read from an official document. "By order of the Secretary of the Army, Private First Class Sarah Chen is hereby restored to her previous rank of Staff Sergeant and assigned as Senior Instructor, Advanced Marksmanship Program, Fort Bragg Sniper School." The ceremony was small. Security considerations prevented any publicity, but word spread quickly through the special operations community. Phoenix was back, and she was training the next generation of American snipers. Sarah returned to her modest quarters that evening, the same room she'd occupied as an invisible supply clerk. But now it housed something different. Not a ghost hiding from the past, but a warrior teaching others to carry on a legacy of precision, dedication, and silent service. She kept her old supply clerk uniform hanging in the closet, a reminder that true heroism often wears the most humble disguises. Every morning, she would choose between that uniform and her instructor's fatigues, understanding that both represented forms of service to something greater than herself. Colonel Hayes would later write in his classified after-action report, "The most dangerous soldier is often the one you never notice. They serve quietly, competently, and when the moment demands it, they step forward to do what others cannot." At Fort Bragg's sniper school, there's now a photograph on the wall, an image of a distant mountain ridge, unremarkable except for the small inscription below. 247 meters. The longest shot is not always the hardest shot. Sometimes the hardest shot is coming back from it. Sarah Chen never speaks about that night when she saved Fort Bragg from catastrophe. She just teaches quietly and competently, passing on the skills that might one day save other soldiers' lives. Because that's what professionals do. They serve, they teach, and they remember that every shot they take carries the weight of honor. If this story of quiet heroism and hidden service resonates with you, hit that subscribe button. Because in a world that celebrates the loud and the flashy, we're here to honor those who serve in the shadows, who carry their duty with dignity, and who remind us that true strength often whispers rather than shouts. These are the stories that matter, the stories of those who serve something greater than themselves.